Welcome to shul.com. We are learning a unbelievable Segula brought down in the Talmud, from the Talmud in Baba Kama, Sadi Bet Amud Aleph. You ever wonder, sometimes you pray and you pray and you pray and you're not getting answered? Well, there's actually a very interesting tactic in how to get your prayers answered. It might seem difficult, but it's actually pretty easy. It's in Gemara Meforash. I'll read it to you. I'm going to give over the Segula, and then following the Segula, I'm going to continue a detailed analysis of how this works. So we'll give the Segula quickly, and then if you want to stay further and listen in, you can hear in some more of the details. So the Gemara brings Amar le Rava le Rabba bar Mari. One rabbi tells the other, Mena ha-milta da-amud banan. Where is the words that the rabbis would say? Kol ha-mebakesh rahamim al havero v'hu tzarich leoto davar hu na'ana techila. He said as follows, that whoever requests mercy on his friend and he needs the same exact thing that he's asking for mercy on his friend, hu na'ana techila. He gets answered first. Amar le dichtiv, like it says in Iyov mem bet dash yud, v'Hashem shav et shevut Iyov b'tpalelo be'ad re'ehu, that Hashem solved and removed all of Iyov's troubles when he started to pray for his friend, who seemingly had similar troubles. And Iyov, for anyone who has read the story, can see that his troubles were tremendous. You know, lo alenu, he lost children, his money, property, then he started to have issues with his body and sicknesses. And Baruch Hashem, at the end, Hashem answered his tefillot. He returned everything to him kiflaim. And it says on Iyov that anybody that would do any business with Iyov after he got healed, and Iyov would give him change, that change, whenever it would touch anybody's money, that person would automatically become successful and wealthy. That meant everything that Iyov touched became gold. Even the leftover change. A guy gave him $1, he had a couple of pennies, he gave him change. Those pennies touched the rest of the money, all the money got blessed. That's how much Hashem loved Iyov. And Hashem healed him when he prayed for his friend. Amar le, at amart mehatam, you said from there. Vana mina mehacha, I say from here. Where's the? He has another pasuk in Bereshit Chaf dash Yud Zayin. Vayitpalel Abraham el haElohim vayirape Elohim et Avimelech v'tishto ve'amhotav v'gomer. And then it says, Ochti v'Hashem pakad et Sarah kasher amar v'gomer kasher amar Abraham el Avimelech. So let me explain to you what happened in the second story. The second story is Abraham Avinu. Abraham Avinu is barren. He doesn't have any children. He's already almost approaching 100 years old. And his wife is also 90. She's not young. And what happens is that his wife gets kidnapped by Abimelech. Now, when we read the story, sometimes we read this parashiyot, week by week. We think that, she was kidnapped, okay, it was a day or two. From one of the Sfarim I read, she was kidnapped for 3 years. Now, what's interesting is that when Hashem punished Abimelech, he punished Abimelech in everybody under his rulership. The chickens stopped producing eggs. The women stopped getting pregnant. And furthermore, even the man could not release any zera. That's what was also brought down in the Sfarim. That he closed up all of the doors of offspring of everybody that existed under the rulership of Abimelech because of him kidnapping Sarah. Now, at the end, Hashem comes to Abimelech. He says that Abraham Avinu is a prophet, return his wife to him. Okay, so he ends up returning the wife. And Hashem says, okay, I need you now to pray for Avimelech that I will return to him the ability to have offspring, and that everything should go back to normal, and that the animals should start to have offspring again. Because again, everything stopped when he took Sarah Imenu, to the level that it was pretty apparent that something was wrong when chickens are not producing eggs, when none of the animals are producing any offspring, and none of the women are getting pregnant, and none of the men have any shechivat zera that can come out of them. It was very apparent to Abimelech that something went wrong. But the awkward thing is that after this guy, he was a gangster, Abimelech, he was no good guy, and he kidnaps Abraham Avinu's wife. Hashem says, okay, I'll heal him, but Abraham, I need you to pray for him. Why? If Hashem, you did it, go give it back. What does it have to do with me? I'm the last guy in the world that should be praying for him. Well, he's not a person that was on the level of Abraham or Sadiq in any capacity. What is this? Hashem was actually teaching an unbelievable tactic, and in these two cases that I showed you, the prayer was actually not for another Jew. It was for someone, just another human being. Because God was saying, if you really want to be answered in your prayers, you have to put all the energies that you want to do for yourself for another one of a human being from any society, for that matter, or any religion. It's unbelievable. Now, obviously, we say it to our brothers, that do it for someone that you know, and whatever, but the two examples that come up in the Gemara are not praying for another Jew. It's just praying for another person that needed help in something. And furthermore, the person that he was praying for was someone who did something very bad to Abraham, and something that affected him, personally. But Hashem was saying, if you can break that, kal vachomer, of course, with someone that you're supposed to have ahavat chinam, like a Jewish brother or sister, that's for sure. But what he's saying here is that it's unbelievable the level that if a person does pray, he's going to be answered first. So if a person is not sure, or he feels that, I'm praying, I'm not getting answered, it's very simple. Get a list or look for people that you know need the same thing as you, whether it's parnasa, children, health, or whatever it is, and put your focus on them and only pray for them, and you'll be masliach. I remember in Brooklyn many years ago, we had this organization called Kol Amit Palel. I don't know if it's still around, where you would call them and you would ask for names, and they would give you names, and you can pray for this or for that. And there were a lot of miracles that happened for people that prayed for other people. So there's a lot to it. Now, of course, in the Shamayim, the way I understood this is that sometimes when a person prays for himself, there can be mikatrigim or malachim that are saying, no, I don't know, he's not so good, he didn't do this, he didn't do that, he's not perfect, it's not his mazal. I don't know. There could be a lot of things that go on in the Shamayim. I don't know how it works there. But one thing for sure, if someone is praying for another person and he's showing ahavat hinam, then there's no doubt that in the Shamayim they're going to value that, because he's pretty much becoming a sanegor on somebody else. And so even the mikatrigim, they seemingly have a problem with this because they can't say anything because he's praying for somebody else. And so it works. Now let's continue. I want to show some of the details of how this works from some of the other Sfarim. Niftach b'divrei Sefer HaChasidim in Siman Tav Shin Nun Gimel. B'ta'am u'b'klalei Segula zo l'kabalat ha'tefilah. So he's explaining how this works. Yesh mitpalel al achirim v'ne'ena. He goes, some people pray for others and they are answered. Ve'al atzmo eno ne'ena. And he prays for himself, he's not answered. V'harei amru. And they said, kol mitpalel al achirim gam hefso ya'aseh. That sometimes you pray for others, he'll also do your things. Right after Abraham Avinu prays for Avimelech, what's the next pasuk after? It says, that right away he prays for Avimelech, and suddenly Sarai Menu gets pregnant, and Avimelech got healed. And it says, Uchtiv and Iyov, Hashem Shah v'shivut Iyov, v'itpalel b'ad Iyov, ve'ech ne'omar, yesh mitpalel al acharim v'ne'ena, al atzmo ve'enu ne'ena. So how can you say someone prays for others and he's answered, but on himself, he's not? How does that work? אלא כך מצינו על רבי חיה, שלא לקה פשטן בארץ ישראל, משעלה רבי חיה, ונהפך שפשטנו לקה, ובזכותו לא לקה. So it says here that when Rabbi Haya, he didn't get affected from the Pishtan Be'ez Yisrael, Misha'ala Rabbi Haya, V'ne'epach she'pishtano laka, u'bizchuto lo laka Pishtan, shel acherim. That when he prayed, the Pishtan, the linen of others, in his zichut didn't, but in his it did. I will read it again. אלא כך מצינו על רבי חיה, שלא לקה פשטן בארץ ישראל, משעלה רבי חיה, ונהפך שפשטנו לקה, ובזכותו לא לקה פשטן של אחרים. So again, he prayed for others that their linen should be okay, and it was good, it survived, but on his it didn't. So I thought you told me that if he prays for others, he's going to get answered. And then he says here, look at Chulin Pei Vav Amura, והתפלל על אחרים בתפילתו נשמעה, ועל עצמו התפלל ולא הועיל. It didn't work. When he prayed for others, they were answered, but he wasn't. Shema mishum en chabush matir atzmo. So he says, maybe you're going to say someone who is locked in a prison, he can't release himself, he can release others. Shneimar bechol saratam lo tzar. And he brings the pasuk from Yeshaya Sam Gimel Dashtet. V'usrach malach panav lehoshiam. He needs an angel to help him. Im ken v'halo l'Abraham v'liyov ho'il mashit palu al achirim. And she said, what about Abraham and Iyov, the case over there? It says Shani Hatam, that was different over there. Shehayu kison'im, shayu ro'im nismoch al mapalatam. So he tells you something unbelievable. He says, because they prayed for people that were truly their enemies, Abraham ala Avimelech. It was a case of Abraham and Avimelech. And he prayed for someone who was not worthy. And it was someone who, that if they would have fell, it would have been a simha for the other party. And that, in those cases, that's a much bigger level. So even with the situation with Iyov, that these nefashot, the people were under him, or there was a problem there, zohi midat hasud yetera, that when he prayed, Iyov and Abraham, it was a midat of hasidut. It was above and beyond what was necessary to do. But all of Am Yisrael, they're all close to each other. We all love each other. That if something happens in the sibur of another Jew, you are hayav to pray for him. It's actually one of the recommendations of the Hachamim, that you pray for one of your friends if he needs something in your kahal. Kol Israel is all one nation. שנאמר תהילים ל"ה ג' ואני בחדלותם לבושי שק וכתיב בתפילתי על חכי תשוב ואם לא היה מפל היה חוטא. And if a person doesn't pray for another friend that is a Jewish friend that needs something, שנאמר גם אנוכי חדיל המילים מחתו להשם מחדו להתפלל בעדכם, that he actually has to do that. And so the Sefer HaChassidim is writing here that the two cases of the Gemara of praying for a not Jew and an enemy was actually the reason why they got answered. While praying for another Jew, we see some cases where the other person doesn't get answered. So if you are going to pray for somebody, it's seemingly from here, if you have someone, a Jewish friend, that you're not so close with, or maybe there's some argument, sikhsuch, and you pray for them, that might be where the Sefer HaChassidim is saying, even though if you make shalom by praying for someone who needs what he needs and is someone that you're not in a great relationship with, that could maybe have some more value. Let's continue. It's not over here. What was the reason why he got answered first? Because when you pray for others, you are building your own zichuyot. It's helping you when you pray for somebody else. And just as a side note, that's why when you pray in the Amidah, everything is about Rabim. Refa'enu, selahlanu, hashivenu. All these berabim is so that you could think of others, but sibur, and you're praying for them, and your kavanah is on them, not only on yourself. Because you had rahamim on other people, then Hashem's going to have rahamim on you. That's one of the things that we see in this world they call karma, midah keneged midah. That's for sure. What you do to others, you end up seeing it yourself. It seemingly is very apparent. It's one of the midot of Hashem that's very apparent in the world. עוד מבואר, כי כלל זה אמור במתפלל על אנשים כאילו שהיו ראוי לסמוך על מפלתם, כגון על שונאיו, when you're praying for your enemy. ובכל זאת, האדם מתפלל עליהם. And even though a person prays on them, זוהי מידת חסידות יתרה. That is a real מידת of חסידות. ונתרבה לא זכות שתתקבל תפתו על עצמו. And that really tips the scales for the zechut. ואומנם יש להעיר מלשון הגמרא, כל המבקש על חברו והוא צריך לאותו דבר, הרי שמדובר גם במתפלל על חברו. So he says, now there's a question on this, because it says, כל המבקש רחמים על חברו, on his friend. So in the two cases the Gemara gave us was Iyov and the people that were under him, and it was Abraham and Avimelech. But in those two cases, there were not havero. While with a Jew, it will be havero. So why when it came to the case of them not being havero, he got hasidut, but the ma'amar of the Gemara was specifically on havero. So let's continue. Hamabit, besifro, bet Elohim, shar tefillah, perik yud bet. Natan gam ken tam ladavar biglal ma'alat, begedulat hamitpalel. He's explaining the level, the Mabit is explaining the level of those who pray for others. V'sibat hadavar, the reason, ki bizman sheha'adam mitpalel al atzmo, when a person prays for himself, nid'a shehachna'ato v'kamnato b'tfilah hu leto'elet hamusag lo b'tfilah ve'ena tefillah lishma. Because he's praying for something of himself, and it's not lishma. You're asking for something, so it's not l'shem shamayim. L'shem shamayim is I'm just doing it for the sake of heaven, not to take anything back. But when you're praying for things, you're asking for something back. Omnam k'shemmitpalel al acharim kamnato b'tfilah lo halasagat to'elet hamusag. כי אם שמודיע ומכיר כי אין מי שיוכל להפיק רצון איש ואיש, כי אם הוא יתברך, ולזה הוא משלים חסרון המתפלל תחילה. So he says when you're praying for others, what you're really doing is you're actually praying lishma, because you're taking from your time to pray for other people. ולזה הוא משלים חסרון המתפלל תחילה ואחר כך למי שהתפלל עליו. כיוון שהוא לא התפלל לעצמו בהיות צריך לאותו דבר, ולא כיוון גם כן לעצמו. That when you prayed for others, when you needed it, he didn't have kavanah for himself. He had kavanah for others. כמו שאמר הכתוב באברהם, ויתפלל אברהם אל האלוהים, וידפה אלוהים את אבימלך. כי לא הייתה צוותו כי אם על אבימלך. He only prayed Abraham on אבימלך in full kavanah on him. וביוב כתיב, בהתפללו בעד רעהו. That he prayed on his friends, שלא כיוון לעצמו כלל, כי אם לרעהו. He only had kavanah on his friends, והוא יתברך שב שיבותו קודם. Very nice. ומבואר בדברי פרט, נוסף בסגולה זו. What else is there on this סגולה? שתועלתה הידע כשכל כוונתו היא לשמה. It's only when you're praying לשם שמיים. דהיינו שמתפלל על חברו בלבד. When you pray only for your friend, ולא שתפילתו תחלל בתפילת חברו, או שישתמש בסגולה זו בכוונה תחילה שתועיל לעצמו, כי אז שוב אין התפילה גם לשמה, שהרי כוונתו בתפילתו תועלת, אשר תושג לו בה. He says, another thing. He goes, but by you taking someone else's name and praying for them, and your kavanah is that I'm praying for them so that I can be answered first, it removes the lishma from the tefillah, because you're really doing it to get something back. And if you're doing it to get something back, then it's not fully lishma. The whole purpose, when Eov prayed for someone else and Abraham prayed for someone else, both people that they were their enemies in some capacity, they prayed lishma without knowledge of what was going to happen. They didn't know this ma'amar of the Gemara. If Abraham knew that praying for Abimelech would have worked, he would have done it probably years before. He didn't. This was a new tactic that was introduced to the world by God to Abraham, and it was a secret. He ends up giving the secret to Yitzhak. Yitzhak Avinu later, when he prays for his wife, Vayater lo Hashem, and they were both praying. Zo mitpalel bezavid zo mitpalel bezavid zo, en tefilat Sadiq ben Sadiq, tefilat Sadiq ben Rasha. It was a whole discussion that Rivka, she was praying for herself, because she knew, she came from the house of Betuel, Lavan, she knew that you pray for yourself on things. Yitzhak already knew the tactics, so when Yitzhak was praying, he prayed for Rivka. He had his kavanah on her, L'Shem Shamayim, and that's why Vayater lo, Hashem answered Yitzhak, he didn't answer Rivka. Rashi gives a whole explanation. We have a beautiful derush on that. Let's continue. Devar ze he'ela gam Rabbeinu Hida. Hida also speaks about this. Beharot al Mosre Hashla. Nitpas bechumash Torah or al pi ir miklat v'nachal kadumim. Okay, it says, and it's found in Parashat Vayera. Shekatav Hashla HaKadosh, and v'zeh leshono. V'Hashem pakad et tzarav lamdu razal mizeh. The Hachamim learned from this. That someone who prays on his friend and he needs the same thing, he will be answered first. He's doing a very good thing when he prays for other people. Even if you pray for people as a whole entire group, or even one person. He prays for his friend. What did the Hida add on this? You must have the kavanah on your friend. Not that you're doing it for him so that you can get it back. And it's brought down the al-sheikh and echa bet dash yunchet and yutet. Lo lanu Hashem, on those words. Ki'im lechavod hashechina lo lanu. When we're praying, we're saying not for us. We're not praying because we need things. We're praying for you only. God, she'en kavanatinu she'imshach to'elet lanu. Lo lanu, we're saying lo lanu, Hashem lo lanu. We're praying this, we're doing this only for you, the Shem Shamayim. And that's another kavanah when you do it in the Halil. Omnam, matzinu cholkim al zeh. But there are people that argue on what we just said. Dehinne klape nosach Rabbi, let's see here. Rabbeinu Shulchan Aruch bebirkat kohanim. He says here, sheyu kol chalamotai alai ve'al kol Yisrael letova. He says that all of my dreams should be on me. Also, he says here, it says here, it says in the tefillah, we say Ribono Shel Olam, the creator of the world, the master of the world. You call halamotai, all of my dreams, alai, on me, and on all of Israel, all my dreams should be for good. Ben shechalamti al atzmi, whether I dreamt on myself, or ben shechalamti al acherim, or whether I dreamt on other people. The shul be good. Veheir Hamagen Abraham. He wrote in Siman. Let's see here. Kuf Lamed. It's 130. Sif Katan Bet. Sheyesh l'shanot hanosach v'lahakdim. He says change that nosach a little bit in the tefillah. Ben chalamot shechalamti al acherim, or ben chalamot shechalamti al atzmi. He makes a change in the V'hatam hu mishum de tzarich levakesh al chaverot tefillah. He says when you make that prayer for a dream, that let's say there's a halom, someone had a dream, it was a dream that scared him, or he feels that there's something to it that might affect him, then he should pray that it's a good dream. But the Magen Avraham was saying, change the order of the text to pray for others first and then yourself. Ubiyeted bi'ud muva'im ha'devarim b'shulchan aruch harav. It's wrote down by, this is Rav Shneur Zalman Miliadi. Tov lomar techila ben halomot shechalamti al acherim ve'acharei chen ben halomot shechalamti al atzmi ben shechalmu acherim alai. He changes the text also. Lefi she'amnu hamitpel ha'chavru hu na'anat techila. Same reason. Nachin yesh lo lahagdim tifilato al acherim ve'al atzmo. Always pray for others before you pray for yourself. Mefurash yotze shegam bemitpalel ba'avur atzmo. That even if a person prays on himself, יש בו המעלה של המתפלל על חברו והוא נענה תחילה. אלא שהתנאי הוא שיקדים תחילה להתפלל על חברו ואז הוא נענה תחילה. That a person has to be careful that if you want the Segula to work, you pray for the first person, the other person first, and then yourself. Or just for them, for that matter. ולסיומת דמילתן נביא עוד. And to finish our words, we'll bring one more thing. שסגולת המתפלל בעד חברו מועילה גם על העתיד. That praying for someone else even works for the atid. Meaning, up until now we said if he needs the same thing as someone else and he prays for his other friend, L'Shem Shamayim, he'll be answered because he needs something now. But now we're adding something that, let's say you want to pray for your friend for the future, that he should have success. The guy doesn't need anything. He's okay. Maybe he needs it. Maybe you want to pray for his kids that they get married in the future. It will also bounce back and help you. Even his children after him, it'll help. And Shimon had rahamim on Reuven, as if it was on himself. כשיבוא על שמעון שום שער ולא יתחנן ראובן על שמעון כמו שמעון על ראובן הרי כאילו גזלו ואפילו אם נושע שמעון. He says another thing here. He goes, if you're praying for someone else, L'Shem Shamayim, and it ends up working because you end up feeling the sa'ar of someone else, but when it's a reciprocal situation, the other person doesn't pray back, it's almost like he stole from him something. Even if Shimon is being saved for the other direction, you have to love your friend like yourself. And if he had some rahamim on his friend, he says that when a person is praying for someone else, and he has kavanah for someone else, and Hashem Shamayim, then it's always going to bounce back, even to his children, if the same situation comes up, and it'll be tremendous beracha. So what we're learning from here is, the basis of it is that you should pray for other people, specifically people that you're not in a good relationship with, because the cases that brought down the Gemara were people that were enemies, and you have to do L'Shem Shamayim and always start first with them. And there's no doubt that if you're going to pray for other people, you will be answered first. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.